Look at your device's screen. Every icon is procrastination's best friend. Every notification is a masterfully disguised weapon of mass destruction against productivity. We live in an age of digital barbarity, where our own gadgets are systematically destroying our last stronghold, the ability to think deeply. But what if I told you that the most powerful weapon against digital chaos was invented 500 years ago? And it wasn't invented by programmers, but by people whose lives depended on absolute clarity of mind in the moments between life and death. Samurai. They faced a paradox familiar to all of us: how to achieve lightning-fast reactions, strategic genius, and ruthless efficiency. The answer turned out to be so subtle that 99% of people miss it. You don't need to speed up. You need to learn to slow down to a complete stop. And they found a tool for it. They called it Tea-no-Yu, the way of tea. But for a warrior, this wasn't a hobby, not an aesthetic pleasure. It was a highly complex combat psychotechnique, a system for reprogramming the mind to achieve peak productivity. The secret lay not in tea leaves, but in 4 principles that could be applied to any task, from writing code to negotiating. Today, you'll master the tea ceremony of focus, a protocol that will transform your work from digital chaos into a work of art. To understand the full depth of this system, we must return to Edo period Japan. Meet Ryosuke, a young samurai from a noble family, the descendant of generations of warriors. On the training field, he is the embodiment of deadly grace. His sword cuts through the air with a whistle worthy of stopping a heart. But there is a problem that undermines all his martial prowess. Imagine a clan council. The elders are discussing strategy for months to come. The maps are laid out, the calculations are made, but Ryosuke can't sit still. His mind, accustomed to the adrenaline rush of 3-second battles, can't stand the monotony of hour-long discussions. He interrupts his elders, misses key details in documents, makes impulsive decisions based on momentary emotions rather than strategic calculations. His father, a powerful daimyo, watches this with growing despair. "My son wields a sword, but he lacks focus," he tells his chief advisor in a rare moment of candor. "He is like a double-edged blade without a hilt, equally dangerous to both the enemy and the wielder. Such a warrior will bring more trouble to the clan than glory." The situation reaches a boiling point when Ryosuke's carelessness ruins an important diplomatic mission. Face is lost. Relations with an influential ally are damaged. Then the father makes a decision that shocks the entire clan. He doesn't send his son to a new fencing teacher or to a monastery for meditation. He sends him to Master Soho, an old blind master of the tea ceremony, a man who hasn't held a sword in 30 years, but whose calm presence is more powerful than that of 100 armed warriors. Picture the scene. Ryosuke enters the tea room. His posture betrays arrogance. Irritation permeates every movement. He still smells of the dust of the training field. "I'm a warrior," he declares, barely concealing his contempt. "And you're going to teach me how to brew tea? I should be learning strategy, battle tactics, not this." He gestures dismissively at the humble tea utensils. Master Soho doesn't turn his head towards him. His blind eyes stare into space, but it seems as if he sees right through Ryosuke. Young samurai. His voice is quiet, but every word falls with the weight of a leaden seal. "Your sword is sharp. That's true. But your mind is like a dull cleaver. It can chop, but it cannot make a precise cut. You can defeat 10 enemies in open combat, but you cannot defeat the one enemy in your own head, your absent-mindedness. As long as that enemy lives, you are not a warrior. You are simply a dangerous man with a weapon. Sit." At this moment, Ryosuke's pride collides with the master's impenetrable wall of calm, and it is here that his true transformation from fighter to warrior begins. Master Soho explains that the true tea ceremony is not about tea. It is a profound, philosophical, and psychological practice, honed by generations of samurai to the point of being a perfect instrument. They called this system Shinkai Su Itsu, the 4 pillars upon which the state of absolute presence rests. The first principle is sin, truth, or authenticity. This is the stage of true preparation, comparable to tempering the steel for a katana. It involves creating ideal external and internal conditions, a ritual of cleansing the space and mind before any action. The second principle is KAI, meeting. This isn't just the beginning of work. It's a full-fledged mental and emotional ceremony of transitioning into a working state. It's a full presence and respectful meeting with the task, the tools, and the moment. The third principle is Soyu, grass. It symbolizes the state every artist strives for, naturalness and creative flow, when action flows through you easily and precisely, without effort or internal resistance, like water flowing through a riverbed. The fourth principle is ICU, escape or detachment, the highest art of graceful completion. Not simply do it and quit, but a conscious summing up, learning lessons, and restoring harmony. The sequence of Sin, Kai, SOU, Itsu is sacred and immutable, like the sequence of strikes in a deadly sword technique. Violate it, and your work will remain mere fussy activity, a pathetic parody of true effectiveness. Follow it, and any action, even the simplest, becomes a meaningful ceremony, and any ceremony becomes art. Thus began the stage of Shin, true preparation, for Ryosuke. Master Soho forces him to forget about tea for weeks, for months. Instead, he spends the endless, monotonous preparation of the tea room. Every object here has a meaning, Ryosuke-san, the master says, as the young man irritably dusts the shelves, which to him seem immaculate. When you sweep a rag across the floor, you're not simply removing dust. You're drawing a line between the chaos of the outer world and the order of the inner world. When you arrange your tools in strict order, you're not simply laying things out. You're creating a framework for your mind. When you dim the lights, you're not simply creating an atmosphere. You're quieting your senses, which constantly scream at you for action. The space around you is not just a room. It's an extension and a precise reflection of your consciousness. Ryosuke performs these actions with an inner rebellion. What does cleaning the floor have to do with the art of war, he thinks, vigorously wiping the rag across the now shiny floorboards? What does arranging cups have to do with making strategic decisions that affect people's lives? He feels his precious time, which could be spent honing his martial skills, being squandered on these, in his view, meaningless rituals. The master's answer comes not in words, but in an unexpected experience. After a week of this seemingly futile practice, Soho stops him at the door at the end of the day. Today, while preparing the room, you weren't distracted once, the old man observes, his blind eyes seeming to see more than the sighted. For the first time, your attention was whole, unbroken, like the polished surface of a sword. You weren't simply cleaning the floor, you were the cleaning of the floor. In that moment, there was no Ryosuke, no floor, no room. There was only action. Remember this state. This is the foundation of all true mastery, be it swordsmanship or strategic planning. What was actually happening to Ryosuke and his brain at this stage? Modern neuroscience offers a brilliant explanation. Research conducted at Princeton University has clearly demonstrated that order in physical space directly and measurably impacts our cognitive abilities. Visual clutter, strewn objects, a chaotic desk, piles of papers creates a constant background cognitive load. Our brain unconsciously but continuously processes this chaos, significantly reducing working memory capacity and undermining the ability to concentrate. Thus, preparing a space using the Sin principle isn't just cleaning in the everyday sense. It's the creation of a kind of external prefrontal cortex. You literally transfer the function of control and order to the external environment, which now works for you, freeing up precious mental resources for solving the main task. You transform the environment from an enemy into an ally. Your first task on this path is to master the principle of Sin. Over the next 7 days, your main practice will be preparation. Before beginning any serious work, spend exactly 5 minutes creating your tea room. This involves 3 levels of order, 3 layers of preparation. Physical order, a completely clear desk, clutter removed and dimmed or properly directed lighting. Digital order, completely closing all unnecessary browser tabs, ruthlessly disabling all notifications on all devices. And finally, mental order, 1 minute of simple, non-judgmental observation of your breathing, without trying to change or control it. Remember, at this moment, you are not simply getting ready to work. You are consciously and methodically creating a sacred space, a nurturing environment in which the seed of deep focus can germinate and blossom naturally, without struggle or effort. When Ryosuke finally learned to create these ideal conditions, Master Soho allowed him to touch the tea utensils, but again, not to begin brewing. "Now," said the master, "your task is simply to sit before the tools, look at them, study them, get to know them as you would a new weapon. You're not making tea, you're encountering the tea. You're encountering this moment that will never be repeated." Ryosuke sits down. At first, he's unbearably bored. His mind, that mechanism trained for action, thrashes in its cage of inaction, demanding movement, a goal, a result. Then he feels strange, simply sitting and looking at the bowl, the bamboo whisk, the silk tea bag, as if they were objects of meditation. And then, after some time, something happens that he can't explain. He begins to notice details that had always eluded him before. The subtle, living texture of the ceramic bowl, which was far from perfect, but rather breathing, handcrafted, the play of light on the surface of the bamboo teaspoon, like a beam gliding along the smooth internodes. He begins to hear not only his own breathing, but also distant, barely perceptible sounds beyond the walls of the room, the rustling of leaves, the singing of a distant bird. The most important thing is that he stops wanting to get started already. The impatience disappears, the desire to quickly move on to the next, to the result. Only now existed. Only this moment, this room, these tools, and him. This was his first real breakthrough. KAI, the meeting. He learned not just to prepare for action, but to fully embrace, respect, and live the moment before it. He realized that true strength is born not in action, but in the pause before it. Neuroscience comes to our aid here too, offering a fascinating explanation. Brain scans show that when we consciously encounter a task before starting work, visualizing it, naming it, tuning into it, the insula is activated. This is the area of the brain responsible for interoception, the subtle perception of the internal states of the body and mind. This activation creates a powerful neural anchor, a unique pattern of arousal that helps the brain maintain focus on the task in the minutes and hours that follow. Without this conscious meeting, our brain is like an unanchored ship in a stormy sea, tossed about by random thoughts and external distractions, aimlessly jumping from task to task like a monkey leaping from branch to branch in search of a ripe fruit. Your second task is to master the KAI principle. Over the next 7 days, practice mindfully facing every major challenge. Before you begin, follow these 3 simple yet incredibly powerful steps. First, state the task clearly and out loud, either in a whisper or simply in your mind. For the next 90 minutes, I will work on the financial report. Second, close your eyes for a moment and create a vivid, detailed image of the desired outcome. I see the finished, clear, flawless report on my screen, and I feel a sense of accomplishment. Third, formulate a clear, powerful intention. For these 90 minutes, I will work with complete, uninterrupted concentration. All extraneous thoughts will come and go without distracting me. After this, take the most important pause, just 30 seconds. Simply sit with this intention, with this feeling of meeting. Don't rush to get started. Don't give in to the impulse to begin. You're not starting work. You're meeting the work. You're welcoming it, respectfully inviting it into your space, and preparing to dance together. Weeks passed, then months. Ryosuke finally began making tea, but not as he had imagined in his wildest fantasies. Master Soho's movements, which he now observed daily, were astonishing, smooth, economical, precise, down to the millimeter, without a single superfluous or fussy gesture. It seemed as if he wasn't making the tea, but rather the tea was making itself through him, using his body as a perfect instrument. There was no visible effort or strain, only pure, honed, almost divine movement. "It's not a technique, Ryosuke-san," the master explained, watching the young man tensely attempt to imitate his apparent ease. "It's a state, the same state when an experienced swordsman merges with his sword and a calligrapher ceases to exist separately from his brush and ink. The very boundary between you and the action disappears. You and the action become one. This is Soyu, the creative flow, a natural and effortless performance that is born not from effort but from a deep, silent understanding. Ryosuke practiced the same movement, lifting the bowl, a precise swing of the whisk, hundreds, thousands of times, at first consciously controlling every muscle, every phase of the movement, then increasingly automatically, beginning to trust his body, his muscle memory. And then, one completely ordinary, unremarkable day, it happened. His hands knew what to do. His mind was calm and clear, but inactive, not in control. His sense of time changed dramatically. Minutes passed like seconds. Hours flew by unnoticed. He wasn't making tea. He was the making of tea. A continuous, powerful current flowed through him, and he was that current, inseparable from it. The neuroscience of the flow state, or the flow principle, is now quite well understood. Brain scans of people in this state reveal a remarkable phenomenon called transient hypofrontality, a temporary but significant reduction in prefrontal cortex activity, the very part of the brain responsible for conscious self-control, introspection, planning, and timing temporarily switches off, reducing its activity. The inner critic is blocked, and reflective self-awareness, what will others think, am I doing the right thing, disappears. Control of complex, highly refined actions shifts to more ancient and efficient structures, the basal ganglia and cerebellum, the centers of automated skills. At the same time, the brain releases a powerful, almost magical neurochemical cocktail: dopamine, motivation and reward; norepinephrine, focus and alertness; anandamide, bliss and pain relief; and endorphins, euphoria. You work at the absolute peak of your abilities, without feeling tired or strained, and time subjectively flies by at an incredible speed. Your third task is to purposefully cultivate the flow state principle. Over the next 7 days, actively practice entering a state of flow. To do this, use several scientifically proven triggers. Work in uninterrupted, protected 90-minute blocks without any internal or external interruptions. Choose a task that's approximately 4% more challenging than your current skill level. It's the perfect balance, avoiding both boredom, too easy, and anxiety, too difficult. Provide immediate, unambiguous feedback. This could be automated tests for a programmer, a detailed checklist for a writer, or a strict timer for a researcher. And create and hone your own personal trigger rituals. Specific, non-distracting instrumental music, a specific focused light from a desk lamp, a cup of a specific tea or coffee, 5 minutes of conscious breathing before beginning. Remember, in the SOM state, you're not working in the usual sense. You enter the dance with a purpose, becoming the flow itself, where action and consciousness merge. Ryosuke was absolutely certain that the ceremony ended the moment the last sip of tea was taken and the cup emptied, but Master Soho repeatedly upended his preconceived notions of the process. The most important, the most fundamental, and yet the most underrated part of the ceremony, Ryosuke-san, he said, is its conclusion. How do you leave the tea room? With what expression? With what thoughts? How do you put away your instruments? With gratitude or with relief that it's all over? How do you thank the space for the time spent here? A careless, hasty, unconscious conclusion ruins the entire ceremony, devalues it, leaves a bitter, unpleasant aftertaste that will poison the next meeting. The master taught him special, unhurried, dignified closing rituals, a thorough inspection and cleaning of each instrument used not as a chore, but as an act of gratitude to the tool. A mental, dispassionate review of the just completed ceremony. What went perfectly? What could be improved next time? Without self-flagellation or pride. A conscious, methodical restoration of order in the room, returning it to a pristine, crystal-clear state of readiness for the next visit. Completion is not the end, Ryosuke-san, Soho repeated again and again. It is the seed from which the next ceremony will grow. It is the bridge between past and future experiences. Well, by gracefully concluding one, you do not simply put an end to it. You prepare fertile ground for the next beginning, which will surely be better than the last. From the perspective of modern neuroscience, the principle of ICI is no less important than all the previous ones. Conscious, ritualistic practices of of completion activates certain areas of the brain, particularly the amygdala, which creates a deep, satisfying sense of closure and completion. The famous Zeigarnik effect, our tendency to remember unfinished tasks better, works in reverse here. Proper ritualized completion relieves this tension, closes the gestalt, freeing up cognitive resources and eliminating the background noise of anxiety associated with unfinished business. Furthermore, such a ritual stimulates the production of serotonin, creating positive reinforcement and a pleasant, calm feeling of accomplishment, which motivates us to begin new tasks in the future without fear or resistance. Your fourth and final task is to master the principle of ICI. Over the next 7 days, practice closing each work session mindfully, gracefully, and respectfully. Set aside the obligatory last 5 minutes for this. Spend them not on sending another email in the heat of the moment or quickly finishing a paragraph, but on conducting a full-fledged personal closing ceremony. Analyze the work you've completed, not in terms of volume or quantity, but in terms of the quality of your attention and the depth of your focus. Capture one, just one, yet concrete and useful lesson about yourself and your work. Today, I learned that my peak concentration occurs during the first 45 minutes of my morning block, and then I need a short reset. Restore order to your workspace. Close all tabs, organize files into folders, wipe invisible dust from your desk, and get your tools in tip-top shape. Mentally and sincerely, thank yourself for the effort you've put in, for the time you've dedicated to this important task, regardless of the immediate results. And finally, take a clear, conscious action, symbolizing the final end. Close your laptop lid with a sense of accomplishment. Leave the office, take a slow sip of water, and catch your breath. You're not simply finishing work, you're completing a ceremony. You're making a beautiful, confident end that allows you to be fully present in the present moment, not in a task already completed. Now, pause for a moment, put everything aside, and ask yourself the most honest, most uncomfortable question. Why, knowing all these principles, understanding their depth and scientific validity, are you highly unlikely to implement the Shinkai-su Itsu system into your life? The answer, as is often the case, is simple and obvious, because inside you lives that same digital barbarian, that same impatient, impulsive Ryosuke he was at the very beginning of his journey. And this inner voice will whisper to you, urge you, and use the same excuses that held him back. I don't have time for all these rituals. The world moves too fast. I need to work, act, deliver results here and now. It's all too slow, too ceremonious, too pompous. I'm used to speed, to chaos. It's my style, my nature. What does cleaning the table or a minute's pause before starting have to do with real, serious adult work? Those are child's play. Know and remember once and for all. This insistent voice is not the voice of efficiency, not the voice of productivity. It is the voice of mental barbarism. It is what forever separates the artisan from the master, meaningless, hectic activity from meaningful, powerful efficiency, digital fuss from the true, high art of presence and creation. The choice you make right now, in this very moment, determines your future trajectory. Will you remain a digital nomad, forever bouncing across the vast expanses of the internet from one momentary task to the next, never truly immersing yourself in any one of them, leaving nothing in your wake but digital dust? Or will you become a modern tea ceremony master for whom every work session is not an annoying chore, but high art, an act of deep presence and true creativity? Theory without practice is dead. Knowledge without action is simply intellectual garbage that clogs the mind. So, I haven't just told you about a system, I'm giving you your own verified 21-day tea ceremony path, your personal protocol for transforming from an absent-minded user into a master of focus. During the first week, you will fully dedicate yourself to the principle of sin, true preparation. Every day, you will hone and refine the art of creating your sacred workspace, bringing it to a ritual, almost monastic, purity and order. In the second week, you'll combine and meld the principles of KAI and SOU, meeting and flow. You'll learn to consciously and gracefully enter a working state and immerse yourself in a deep, almost meditative flow where time stands still and productivity and creativity soar. In the third and final week, you will master the principle of ICU, the art of completion, and fully integrate all 4 principles into a single, fluid, beautiful dance. You will transform disparate practices into your own personal, flawlessly tuned, living system that will work for you always and everywhere. If you've read this far, you're not a random person. You're one of the few, one of the chosen few, who is truly ready for deep, meaningful work. You understand that true, lasting productivity begins not with new apps or clever time management techniques, but with a fundamental, revolutionary rethinking of your approach to attention, to time, to the act of work itself. This channel, this community, is our shared virtual tea room. Not a place for quick, superficial life hacks and momentary advice, but a space for deep, conscious, and thoughtful work on your craft, no matter what field you pursue, be it programming, writing, entrepreneurship, or art. So my call to you today is simple, concrete, and urgent. Right now, without delay, without giving internal resistance a chance, write just one powerful phrase in the comments below this video. Start it with the words, "My ceremony for tomorrow is," and then add the most important key task you will transform from a boring routine into high art, an act of presence. Anchor this intention. Commit to yourself and your community. Take the first, most important, decisive step from passive knowledge to active, transformative action. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, because our journey isn't over yet. In the next episode, we'll explore an equally powerful, groundbreaking system. The Ronin Code, for those who work without a boss, are their own masters, their own samurai in the vast fields of the digital economy. Your transformation from digital consumer to true master of magic is just beginning, and the most exciting discoveries lie ahead. Remember, and let this knowledge become your core. Your work is not just a faceless to-do list in a diary. It is your daily, unique tea ceremony, which only you and no one else can conduct with truly perfection and impeccability. A ceremony in which you are simultaneously the honored guest, the gracious host, the wise master, and the eternal student. Now go and perform your first truly conscious, deliberate, and beautiful focus tea ceremony. The world awaits your mastery.